Okay, welcome everybody. And welcome back to our City Hall chambers for everybody too. So we'll see how this works. It's kind of an experiment here, but we'll see how it goes. Let's start off. I'm calling the meeting to order of the City Council of Cherry Hills Village City Council for Tuesday, June 16th, 2020. Roll call, please.
Councillor Safavi?
Here.
Councillor Wheel?
Here.
Councillor Brown?
Here.
Councillor Gallagher?
Here.
Councillor Sheldon?
Here.
Councillor Blum?
Here.
Okay, if we could have the stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. So we'll have audience participation both live and also by Zoom. And I'll take the sign-in sheet. Thank you, Jay. I think if we can start, I think we have 2 citizens by Zoom. 3. Let's see how this works. Yes.
Yeah, this screen isn't working, but I'll just use that.
Oh, okay. So Jerry Neff is the first. Jerry?
Oh, there.
Yes. Hi, Jerry. You're
I
up.
can hear you.
Oh, hi. I can barely hear you. Sorry.
Well, it's probably the mask. Jerry, if you could give your name and address, please.
Okay. I'm Jerry Norgren Neff, and I live on Quincy Farm at 4400 East Quincy Avenue. And I have a long-standing relationship with Quincy Farm. I researched and wrote the history of the farm, as well as co-authoring the National Register nomination with my mother. This resulted in the farm being placed on both the national and state registers with 2 designations. I have also lived in the old farmhouse for 21 years. I am very disheartened by the direction the village is proposing to take the farm. I encourage the council to view the final master plan before it comes to you and listen to the audio of both the Quincy Farm Committee and PTRC meetings from last week to gain a sense of what the community would like to see happen on the farm. All of the comments contain a strong central theme: to have the farm remain what it is, a working farm with vegetable gardens, animals, opportunities to learn about the land and history, and to honor Cat's vision. The planned idea of a commonplace theme park with an overabundance of parking spaces, statuary, moon gates, pathways, signage, fencing, a fire pit, a pond viewing stand, and a new bridge completely takes the life and history out of the farm, and is certainly not in keeping with Cat's vision for her beloved farm. I was surprised to see that my name, along with Cat's granddaughter, Natalie Anderson, and Candy Graves, was listed as a stakeholder on the final of the master plan. That led to the impression that we somehow were involved in the direction the plan has taken. We were all interviewed once, and our comments are noted as well. None of the comments were incorporated into the plan, and we only had a chance to see the preliminary site plan, which left us with many unanswered questions. We never did see the final until a few days before the Quincy Farm Committee meeting, nor were we asked if our names could appear on the document. Therefore, we have formally requested that all 3 of our names be removed from the document in its current form. There are also numerous errors in the plan with regards to the historic designation, and those are outlined in my comments to the Quincy Farm Committee. It is very confusing as to how the plan for the farm has ended up where it is, forcing the farm to become something it isn't. And why is there such a hurry in getting the plan passed? The plan never would have ended up in contrast to the wishes of a large part of the community if that community had been involved from the very beginning. Who directed the consultant to go down this road? Speaking for 5 minutes before public meetings doesn't instill a sense of involvement. A discussion with all interested parties would go a long way to coming up with a plan everyone would be happy with. It saddens me to see this once vibrant place in such a state of disrepair, with buildings and land being so neglected and nothing being done as far as much needed preventative maintenance. The ditch is finally running for the first time in 3 years, and the pasture is not being irrigated, the water rights not being used. Not for the first time, I am having to take care of the exterior issues on the house on my own. The paint is literally falling off the upstairs railings and doors and down to raw wood in most places. The wood on all 3 sets of stairs leading into the house is raw, splintering, and becoming dangerous. I'm having to paint the railings and doors as well as repair and stain the stairs the best I can. And with Candy Gray's passing, the east side of the farm will be completely unoccupied at the end of the month, bringing up major security concerns for all the neighbors as well as for the structures themselves. It seems that the village's mantra and new mission statement with regards to the farm is one I have been hearing the last few years in various forms. It is a city property. It needs to be open to the public, and we have already spent a lot of money, and it still isn't open. Sadly, that isn't a good vision for developing a great plan for the farm. So much of the history of our country has been lost to short-sighted ideas and concepts, only to be realized years later that history has been lost. The stewardship of our historic buildings and lands falls to the people who will best honor, protect, preserve, and promote that history, not only of Quincy Farm, but of the incredible legacy that Cat Anderson left with us. Please don't try to make the farm become something it is not, and please allow neighbors and citizens to have much more input into what will hopefully become a source of pride for all concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry, for your comments. Next, we have Ms. Sally Scott. Sally's a member of the Quincy Farm Committee. Sally, can you state your name and address, please?
Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yes, now we can hear you.
Great. It's Sally Scott, 14 Lynn Road. I actually, as planning on just listening, I don't have a public comment at this time.
Okay. The next on sign up is Howard Shermer. Howard, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Am I plugged in?
Yes, you're plugged in. Give your name and address, please.
Okay. Well, good evening to you all. First, I'm Howard Shermer, and I live at 4100 East Quincy Avenue, which is in very close proximity to Quincy Farm, down the lane on the kind of the west side. And my comments are directed again towards Quincy Farm. First of all, I've known Kat for well over 20 years. We built our house here 28 years ago. And I think I have a decent sense of her vision for the property. This last weekend, I had an opportunity to look at the draft master plan. It is in somewhat incomplete form. I would say that it's very well written, wonderful photographs of what this place looked like way back when, and it certainly was professionally done. The problem, as I see it, is the focus is off the target. It presents a plan for a suburban park, in my view, not a plan for, and I quote from the master plan, a historic Colorado farm in a natural setting. A historic park should be just that, historic, natural, without moon gates, covered viewing platforms, and pergola shades. I had management responsibility for a number of what I call theme parks. Some of them are quite large. We were consultants, my firm, for Disney, and I was directly involved in the Paris park and also the Hong Kong park, theme parks. And my partners actually came up with a master plan concept for Epcot. Quincy Farm should not resemble those parks. I think the master plan is clearly aimed in that direction. Obviously, there's no amusement rides. The farm is really crying out for maintenance. I heard Jerry say the condition of her house. The irrigation needs really are, I think, rather important. Today I went up and looked at the pond. I don't know if anyone was up there today, but it's never looked as bad in my time here, as bad as today. It's a murky mud hole, actually. It really needs attention by somebody. Anyway, I think the priorities are a bit misplaced here. As an engineer, I see that the needs really need to be on evaluating the condition of the pond. It's reportedly not in good, stable condition. And the priority should not be on visual or upgraded facilities, really, or enhancements at this time. In my view, farms, particularly historic farms, by nature need to be natural, they're truly old, and honestly a bit run down, and not picture perfect. The master plan really gives me the impression of a picture perfect farm, which it shouldn't be if we're trying to reflect on the past. I've always had trouble here on the west side of the property with mowed walking trails, which really are, in my view, out of line when the easement says there shall be no hiking on the west side. I don't see the need for benches or placard structures, again, on the west side. I am concerned on the east side. I really haven't spent much time over there, but 24 parking stalls to service events over there will likely be 84 people, 3 people per car, plus the overflows going to Kent. That's a lot of people on that small piece of property. I need to express these thoughts really in the hope that reason can prevail here in going forward and hopefully bring it back to what I think CAT and bring it consistent with the conservation easement. Thank you very much for your time and listening to me tonight.
Thank you, Howard. Appreciate your comments. So that's all that signed up from Zoom, I believe, electronically, but we have several signups here in person tonight, and thank you all for coming. No, but these are the only ones signed up. Eric Jarmusch, if you'd like to state your name and your address, please.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. My name is Eric Chamrich, and I live at 8 Blackmer Road in Cherry Hills Village. I've been following the developments and the planning for the Quincy Farm project since the initial plans were put forward to the public in an open house on January 21st of this year. Somewhat to the surprise of myself and my neighbors who directly border the property and are directly affected by the developments there, we were never asked to be part of the process or asked for our opinions on the subject. I was initially somewhat heartened when I was told that these plans were very preliminary and public comment would be taken into account. I'm afraid that I've been very disappointed by the process thus far, which has changed minimally from the initial draft, if only to make it less compliant with the conservation easement in which it was donated to the village. It's thus far been impossible to promote discussion or change of any aspects of the plan in spite of attending and speaking at Quincy Farm committee meetings, in spite of writing letters. A number of us believe that the conservation easement which governs the uses of the property would best be served by having Quincy Farm be a sustainable, small-scale working farm with a focus on education of the children of our community. The current plan has statues of people farming and watering their crops and statues of animals. What would be wonderful would be for children to interact with real animals instead of statues of animals, and to see how their food is grown and be a part of the process. There is concern among the neighbors that the current plan does not adequately address the need to preserve the historic structures on the property. Placing a fire pit next to a 100-year-old wooden building on a property whose mission is to preserve the historic structure is questionable, even perhaps by the Parks and Rec committee chair who noted that no park in the village allows fires. There's also a concern that the current master plan will create changes such as a second bridge sacrificing trees along the canal, an extensive driveway that bisects the property, an expansive parking, which we count at 40 parking spaces, which threaten the mission of preserving wildlife and scenic open spaces, all a part of the conservation values of the easement. In the short and long term, we believe that an on-site caretaker on the property is necessary to avoid vandalism, provide additional safety in preventing the farm from becoming an attractive hazard, and begin the process of preservation. From the curling shingles on the roof to the failing window panes to the rotting wooden gates at the entrance to the barnyard, much deferred maintenance is needed. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next on the sign-up is Natalie Anderson. Oh, good to see you. Please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Natalie Anderson. I'm not a current member of the village, but I was hoping I could speak tonight on behalf of my grandmother, Kat. Kat, as you know, donated Quincy Farm to the village. While I know that the Quincy Farm Master Plan has not yet come before you all for your review, it ultimately will, and I urge you to become involved with these issues now. In addition to coming before you today, I also spoke at the most recent Quincy Farm Committee and PTRC meetings. I shared my concern to find that my name appeared as a participating stakeholder in the master plan alongside with my family. No other members of our family have had any involvement in this process, and the remaining friends of Kat Anderson, listed as participating stakeholders, have also requested, along with myself, that our names be removed from the plan. I have not endorsed this plan, nor do I feel that feedback I've given since the beginning of this process has been thoughtfully addressed or incorporated into the plan. On the contrary, I have concerns both about the process that has unfolded up to this point and the plan that has resulted from this process. Of paramount importance to me is that this property be shared with the community in a way that is consistent with my grandmother's vision and the spirit and letter of the easement. During the last Quincy Farm Committee meeting, I spoke about what I believe my grandmother's vision was, what it means to honor the farm's history, and why I think the most recent master plan missed the mark. Many of Kat's friends and neighbors, along with members of the community, also spoke. They beautifully captured who Kat was, what the farm has meant to them, and how they think it should be shared with the community. I strongly encourage all of you to listen to the full recording of these comments. The through line of these comments is that the farm should remain a farm. I'm concerned that replacing live animals with statues and replacing the natural foliage of the farm with hardscaping and signage removes the magic from the farm. Instead, where possible, the agricultural, equestrian, and natural heritage of the property should continue to be honored in authentic and meaningful ways. The chicken coop should continue to have chickens. The barn should house animals, even if they're not horses. And the gardens should be places where the community can grow their own food and learn about Colorado's native vegetation. The parking lot, with over 40 spaces, the fire pit, and manufactured elements take away from the history and heart of what Quincy Farm is. Care should be taken that the property is protected like the historic farm that it is and not treated like a trailhead for the Highline Canal. Please consider a collaborative process where a true dialogue among all stakeholders can occur. There are so many members of the community with incredible knowledge, resources, and a desire to contribute to the farm. For example, the closest neighbors of the farm have been extremely generous in their offers to support Quincy Farm. But these opportunities will be lost if the process is not remedied and they do not feel heard. Our family would likewise be interested in contributing to the farm should the plan be redeveloped to something that we feel aligns with Kat's vision. A collaborative process is crucial to the community feeling ownership of this property and the ability to sustain it successfully long-term. In the meantime, security and maintenance remain serious issues that have not been addressed. While I understand and support the idea of moving slowly and thoughtfully through the planning process, I don't think stopping all work and withholding funding from the farm in the meantime is wise. The longer that deferred maintenance is put off, the worse condition the property will be in. This week has highlighted the need for substantially more dialogue around the master plan, which will take time, and security and maintenance are issues that need attention now. Putting a caretaker on the east side of the property in the farm would be a great start. I'm not sure if there is an appreciation for just how much Candy Gray quietly managed and how big the impact of her loss will be on the farm. She knew the ins and outs of the property better than anyone, and she certainly protected it. While Candy left big shoes to fill, a new caretaker could keep eyes on the property and assist with the ongoing maintenance needs. They could begin to learn about the property and be a great resource for the city in the future. Our family looks forward to the future when this property will be shared with the community in an organized way, but hope you will take the time to think carefully and engage with all stakeholders first. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you very much. Dan Tully? State your name and address, please.
Yes, sir.
My name is Dan Tully, and my wife Diane and I have a home on 10 Blackmore Road, which directly abuts Quincy Farm. I'd like to thank everybody here for giving me an opportunity to speak this evening. We're fortunate to have a home in one of the finest communities in America that is protected by one of the best police forces in our country. We're thankful every day for the women and men of the Cherry Hills Village Police Department. And I'm not sure I can articulate it well, but we really do appreciate everything. Thank you. Unfortunately, crime, accidents, and fires don't stop at our borders. Our neighbors are recent victims of a break-in, and Quincy Farm recently saw the downside of homelessness. Our concerns are both near-term and long-term. Our first concern is that nobody gets hurt. When a property looks abandoned, bad things happen. A barn and other buildings with open access is a recipe for disaster. Our second concern is security. A car can drop off a home invader on Quincy, and within 30 seconds, our house and our neighbors' houses can be under attack. Lastly, a third concern is fire. That concern is somewhat dependent on the master plan. To the extent animals are housed on the property, that worry is significantly heightened. As a firefighter, I've seen the panic that animals experience when threatened by fire. All of our concerns point to the need for a caretaker on the property and a sophisticated security system. Lastly, as we mentioned last week at the Quincy Farms committee meeting, we want to be part of the solution. We don't want to be obstructionists. We want to work together on a plan for Quincy Farm that the community can be proud of and that works for us and our neighbors. If we can collectively come up with that plan, Diane and I would donate $100,000 to Quincy Farms, and it'd be our privilege. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tully. Goka, Weiss.
Hi, my name's Gotza Weiss. Thank you.
And address, please.
3951 South Hudson Way. I moved to Cherry Hills Village years ago because of the rural character and space. I have been working with the Cherry Hills Land Preserve to help protect that character and to create educational opportunities around our community for all to enjoy. Today, I'm here as a concerned resident. I'm here because of my passion for the community and with what is being considered for Quincy Farm. As a longstanding board member of the Village Club, I understand what the costs are associated with maintaining a property of this scale and appreciate the challenges you face in producing a master plan that the community will enjoy and can afford. At this point, I would like to ask you to start by getting back to basics. Rather than broadening the scope of what Quincy Farm should be, start with looking at what it is, a farm. This may look different for each of us, but for those who are engaged, it simply looks like this. Quincy Farm should be a reflection of who Kat Anderson was and respect the vision for why she left such an amazing gift to the community. Nature's beauty is all around on that property. It is inspiring, engaging, and simply put, there for the community to enjoy. We want to see it brought back to life and allow its citizens to enjoy nature in its raw form. There are many ways, big and small, to make Quincy Farm a place for families and a number of residents would like to see it be an animal farm where the community can experience and explore the grounds. There is a property outside of Boston that we visit called Drumlin Farms. It is a great example of what Quincy Farm could be, a place where people linger, where families can expose their children to a farm setting. My family has spent countless hours there and enjoying the property, and my father-in-law used to be a volunteer there as a retiree. I also want you to urgently consider the liability of not having a caregiver as a full-time resident on the property. A property that sits empty will fall into a state of neglect, invite critters, and worse, open to vandals. While I have heard some say that there is a liability of having someone live there, there's a greater liability without someone there full-time. In 1994, at the Village Club, a fire started in the barn. We lost 12 horses to that fire, along with the entire barn. I'm sure that the community remembers when that happened. The fire prompted the membership to agree that a full-time caretaker of the property on the site was needed. The caretaker ensures that the property remains vibrant, is safe for members to enjoy, and that unwelcome guests after hours are asked to leave. We are at a critical point where you need to decide what Quincy Farm should be before approving a site plan around what it should look like. I ask you to listen to the recordings from Quincy Farm committee meetings that were held a week ago, where the community voiced its concerns. Consistently, the message is, you're headed in the wrong direction. Please take the time now to consider to take a step back and reset the direction and do it right. Please spend less on a consultant right now and listen more. Thank you.
Thank you, Gosa. Next speaker, Debbie Wills. Approach. Ms. Wills was a member of the Quincy Farm Visioning Committee.
Thank you very much, and it's good to see you guys. And my name is Debbie Wells. I live at 4950 Sanford Circle West. I grew up in Cherry Hills Village and moved away for a period of time and returned 23 years ago with my own family. I would like to share information and concerns about security at Quincy Farms. I speak for a number of concerned citizens, some of whom are here tonight. Our goal is to share information about a problem and to suggest a solution for council to discuss and consider. To refresh everyone's memory, the property I'm talking about is, of course, Quincy Farm. The property Cat Anderson donated to Cherry Hills Village and that the village holds under a conservation easement. The property is south of Quincy Avenue and east of Kent, Denver. The Quincy Farm property consists of 3 distinct parts, and not everybody knows this, and so I'll share it with you. The west side of the farm includes the main residence and grounds and the historic Hopkins house where Jerry Neff lives right now. Atypical to other segments of the Highline Canal, Kat owned the road and land under the Highline Canal adjacent to her home. She also owned the parcel immediately east of the Highline Canal. The east parcel has a caretaker residence and several old-timey white buildings, including the iconic big barn that many villagers know and love. For many years, this barn has been a favorite stop on the Cherry Hills Land Preserve's Barn Tour, which is one of the village's highly effective community building events, and it's also a lot of fun. In early April, Candy Gray, who was the long-term caretaker of the parcel on the east side of the canal, adjacent to the big barn, passed away. When someone has a terminal illness, the end is very difficult to anticipate and plan for. Some things just simply can't be anticipated. The once bustling barn is now empty. There are a few lights at night, and no cars are parked at the residence. The last horse will leave Quincy Farm within 2 weeks. The term of Candy's lease was set to expire in 2022, and Kat arranged that. And there was no anticipation, really, of a vacancy right now. The barnyard looks and feels strikingly abandoned. Simultaneous to Candy's passing, the pandemic hit. The usage of the Highline Canal skyrocketed. Activity is nonstop, every day, all week long. It starts before the sun rises and continues past dark. The volume of people passing on the canal through Quincy Farm is far beyond what anyone ever anticipated. The usage is projected to increase with the build-out of the Bellevue Station and the tunnel under South Colorado Boulevard and Hamden Avenue. And we all know why people want to come to the village to use that trail. It's absolutely precious. Meanwhile, the barnyard and adjacent buildings are an enticing curiosity. Not only is this property highly visible, it is now abandoned. One of Candy's responsibilities was to ask trespassers to leave the premises when they wandered in, as she called it. This frequently happened more than once a day, and individuals would enter on foot from Quincy or over the bridge from the Highline Canal, which is closed with just a single, I don't know, it's like a dog leash or a horse lead. It was not at all unusual for uninvited cars and pedestrians to enter the barnyard at night, at all hours of the night. Many neighbors and Cherry Hills Village citizens are personally aware of events that have happened near the canal and that are of concern: thefts, trespassing, and camping. Fire, graffiti, and homelessness are also of note. Citizens believe it is important to have a live caretaker in residence to protect and care for this asset between now and when the village determines what will happen next on the property. So it would be an interim temporary position that we're asking for, nothing more at this time. The pandemic has motivated each one of us to think differently. The good news is sometimes solutions are just hiding in plain sight. Villagers know there are caretaker candidates who, in exchange for paying rent, would be willing to provide security for the property and also perform specified tasks that would otherwise take Cherry Hills Village staff time. Tasks such as mowing and hand watering the unirrigated lawn at the caretaker's house on the east side, repairing broken windows in the barn, painting, handling minor repairs, etc. The duration could be as short as the village deems appropriate, 6 to 12 months, giving Quincy Farm and staff as much access as needed, Quincy Farm Committee and the staff of the village. Having someone keep up with these tasks would broadcast that the property is cared for, as well as signal that someone is present, paying attention, and simply looking out for the property. Page 7 of the conservation easement says, and I'll quote, "The East Area house may only be occupied for residential purposes by a caretaker of the property. It is my understanding that our council has the authority to decide whether or not to install a caretaker on the property, and not some other committee or entity. Of course, that is for council to determine. Cherry Hills Village citizens understand our council is bound by important public protocols that must be followed, including in this situation. We ask that council consider installing a qualified caretaker just as soon as possible. Thank you very much for your time."
Debbie, thank you very much for your comments. Appreciate it. Next, Ms. Cynthia Vanderwerff. Welcome back to City Hall and Council Chambers.
I know, as John Love once said, I don't know what I'm going to do with my Tuesday nights. But Cynthia Vanderwerff, 5250 East Shenango Avenue. Thanks for the chance to speak before you this evening. It's good to see everyone. Although I've served on the Quincy Farm Committee for the last few years, I'm not speaking as an official representative of the committee, nor am I speaking about any official positions the committee has taken or endorsed. I simply want to share some of my own thoughts and insights that come from serving on the committee with some very thoughtful and dedicated individuals, some of whom also bring relevant expertise to the community's work, or to the committee's work. However, I know the committee would join me in wanting to say thank you to the Quincy Farm staff for your work and dedication on behalf of our efforts. It's been 5 years since Catherine Anderson's death, and 5 years since the city has taken over the management of the property subject to 2 leases that continue to be in effect. Over the course of these 5 years, we have had a few fits and starts. All of us involved in planning for the opening up of Quincy Farm have faced a sharp learning curve. When I joined the committee, we were working on the master plan while also attempting to activate parts of the west side of the property. We experienced a bit of surprise when we heard from Colorado Open Lands, the entity that holds and monitors the conservation easement, that the easement is really written more strictly than we realized. In fact, although some of us remember quite well that Kat herself suggested She would like to see small weddings on her lawn. We have since learned that this kind of use on the property is not allowed under the conservation easement. And although Kat loved having kids explore her property, on her property, and hunt for tadpoles in the pond, or pollywogs, as she called them, this is also an activity that probably would not be allowed under the conservation easement. So at the end of the day, what we have to work with are what the conservation easement says and what Colorado Open Lands, what their reading of that document is. And although I think some of us felt when we learned the strictures of the west side, we felt like a little bit of the wind had gone out of our sails. But then you, as the city council, made the right call, I believe, by asking us to focus strictly on completing the master plan. And while doing that, to stay in touch with Colorado Open Lands at each step of the way to make certain we were going in the right direction, so that the city could then move forward with activating the farm. Also, City Council generously approved the funds to hire a consultant to expedite that process. I believe consultants can have an important role in this kind of project. And part of it is that they bring a certain amount of objectivity to the table. They need to inform themselves about the property, but then after that, they need to listen to public comments. They need to be sure they speak with those people that we today call stakeholders. In this case, members of PTRC, members of Quincy Farm, neighbors, the people who've loved this property over the years, leaseholders, and then the consultants need to integrate these ideas and think how they can take shape on this property. I know everyone would have preferred that our neighbors and friends who care a great deal about this property, but who were not singled out for a separate interview, could have attended a public meeting. But there are a lot of good reasons why this didn't happen. And I think we all understand why we're hearing from them at this time. I think their love and commitment to Quincy Farm itself is colored also by how much they loved and missed Kat, coupled with wanting to be heard. Together, make the current discussions fairly emotionally charged. Also, one of those reasons we are hearing from people now may be that we have an actual draft plan on paper. We are now looking at drawings that make the draft plan more real. We have an actual document to react to, both for and against. But we also hope that everyone realizes this is a draft, one that is not even completely written at this point. At last Tuesday's Quincy Farm meeting, we heard from these friends and neighbors, and my sense was that all the Quincy Farm committee members took these comments to heart. We agreed to a second meeting at the end of the month to reach consensus on what we heard, and then we will pass these on, our ideas on to the consultant. We heard some excellent ideas, and what we heard will be given careful consideration. I came away thinking that the plan we have on paper and what our neighbors and friends are asking is not that far apart. One of the things that may help close some of the gap is by emphasizing the potential opportunities more clearly in the document. In addition to the constraints placed on Quincy Farm, I just want to quickly mention some other things that influence what can be done. One is that this will be a public property, so it needs to be handicapped accessible. That can affect buildings and paths. Another is the buildings must be up to code for public access. And also, we just learned that one building is going to need some additional structural reinforcement, which can affect what happens there. Then there's also the consideration of flow of people, how they move from one place to the next. One of the things the committee really cares about is we don't want Quincy Farm to be a one-off experience. We don't want people to visit once and then leave saying, okay, that was interesting, but now I've seen it and I don't need to return. We want to have a program that changes and that is useful and relevant, as well as historically informative. Lucinda Green, the chair of the Quincy Farm Committee, and I walked the property a couple days after our meeting last week. And we were trying to look at it and think very concretely how some of the suggestions we heard might be incorporated and addressed. And we were frankly impressed with the way the grounds on the west side look. The city staff have done a good job in maintaining that side. And we want to thank them for working hard to keep it up. And we did notice that there's a lot of work needed on the east side, and that will, I think, take place as soon as we know what's going to happen. And how those, we're also studying what needs to be done in those buildings. The consultants are making recommendations about the order in which changes and improvements can be phased, which will be helpful in cases where when the city is not able to fund them at that time, we can go to the community and try to fund these things to make it possible. But once again, for those who are eager to share Quincy Farm with the public sooner rather than later, there are a couple of opportunities on the west side that the city could invest in to get programs up and running fairly quickly without breaking the bank. We do have a rare opportunity in the form of this amazing gift from Catherine Anderson, and I know we will all be proud when we see it unfold. Thank you.
Thank you, Quasina. Appreciate it. Next speaker, Dave Schmidt. Yes, please come up. State your name and address, please, for us.
Dave Schmidt, 4040 South Birch Street. I'm actually here on a whole kind of different thing in support of the sculpture in front of City Hall. So sure. I don't know if that comes
That's
late.
entirely appropriate. Please go ahead.
Well, just that I think you all have seen photos of the sculpture that the Art Commission has spent a year interviewing artists and looking at different sculptures and that sort of thing. And the one that we had chosen is, I think, on your screen now, possibly. Is that true? No?
We have it in our packet. We
Oh,
have
you
it.
have it in your
we
packet.
have it, yeah.
Okay. So I'm just here in support of that. So I'll stick around, and if you have any questions later,
Please do, Dave. That would be
happy
great.
to answer.
Great.
Okay.
Anyone else? That's the last sign up, but anyone else wish to speak? Thank you very much for your comments, both electronically and in person, and thank you for coming down and taking your time to share your comments and concerns. We appreciate it very much. And it is a process, it is a draft plan, and it's now's the time, so thank you all. And please keep in contact with us, and we'll be in contact with you. Next, actually, we have reports of boards and commissions. I didn't know if, do we have anyone wishing to speak? I didn't know if Lucinda or... Okay. Okay, Lucinda, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you for including us tonight. I want to say hello and good evening to members of council and citizens. I truly apologize not to be there in person with you. I appreciate that technology has afforded us the opportunity to participate remotely in order to protect at-risk members of my family. I'm moved by the conversations this evening and the testimony that was shared. I'm grateful that those citizens and participants have chosen to speak up this evening and share input with council. Certainly, our committee is charged with a difficult process. I've been at it for 5 years, and I know that many of my fellow committee members, council members, citizens have been involved all along the way, and know that this is a long haul. So I just want to share that last Tuesday, June 9th, the Quincy Farm Committee conducted its first meeting since the COVID shutdown. At that meeting, I clarified with the members present that the plan presented was a draft. I apologize if there was misinformation with regards to the words final in any representation. I'll take responsibility, that was my oversight. We heard feedback from a number of citizens and participants regarding the draft site plan and master plan. And at the conclusion of that meeting, the committee agreed on a process to discuss that feedback. Our next meeting is scheduled for June 30th, which is a public meeting. At this meeting, the committee will discuss the additional feedback we've received on June 9th and make a consolidated summary of recommendations to our consultant, Design Concepts. That meeting with the consultant is scheduled for July 21st, and again, will be another public meeting. To council, our committee appreciates the opportunity being allowed to extend the time to thoughtfully consider all the input and define a path forward that we feel best addresses CAT's extraordinary vision in providing this gift to the city. I think I speak for the entire committee that our intent is good, that we are charged with a very difficult path to coordinate and collaborate with multiple ideas and decisions, and we appreciate your consideration as we work through this very difficult process. We learned a lot last Tuesday from folks, and we learned a lot of new information. So we're going to gather that and continue the process. I am grateful for those tonight who have spoken up, and I want to assure you that we're far from done. So please continue to provide us with information. We're interested in hearing it. COVID has shut us down, unfortunately, for a period of time. I understand that folks are upset and feeling difficulty about that, but our goal is really to deliver a product that everyone in the community will enjoy and be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucinda, very much. Is that any other boards and commission reports? I don't see anyone. Hearing none, I think at this point we'll be, will we be ending the Zoom, or we'll be ending the Zoom, but you can still, everyone can still follow us electronically the rest of the city council meeting on the city website or YouTube. You'll have a link, and of course all of our meetings are now recorded, and everybody can watch them recordings of it at your convenience as well. All right, let's move on to agenda item 6. Thank you all. You may stay. You're all welcome to stay, or you may leave, of course. Moving on to agenda item 6, consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Have a motion and a second for the consent agenda. Now we can just do a voice vote, right, again. It's nice. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that passes unanimously. Unfinished business. 8A, which is a city financial status update, and Jessica, you get the floor, or the lectern.
It's like old times standing before you at a podium. Just give me one. Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. Staff has prepared a financial presentation providing year-end projections, offering guidance for the 3 projects immediately following this presentation. Because of the uncertainty surrounding the pandemic, city staff were advised to halt all expenditures unless they were mandatory, project essential, or approved by a department director. Staff was able to eliminate expenses in each department, primarily in personnel and overtime, expenses, special events, the master plan update, and training. Staff delayed filling open positions and eliminated most overtime for non-essential employees, special events such as National Night Out, and portions of the spring cleanup and 75th anniversary were canceled. The master plan update has been delayed due to restrictions with the pandemic, so approximately 25 to 50% of the expenses will be carried into the 2021 budget. Finally, numerous staff trainings and conferences that were included in the 2020 budget were canceled or are being offered online at no charge. This results in a savings of approximately $423,000, less than what was budgeted in the 2020 budget. Included in the packet were 3 revenue projection scenarios. The first scenario is a straight line projection that's based on actual revenue collections from January through May. This scenario projects year-end revenues to be approximately $7.5 million or $490,000 above anticipated expenditures. The Finance Department's best year-end projection is the second scenario. Staff reviewed each line and adjusted the projections based on actual collections from March, April, and May, and reviewed upcoming projects. This scenario projects year-end revenue to be approximately $7.4 million or $370,000 above anticipated expenditures. Finally, the third scenario is the Finance Department's most conservative projection. This projection is very similar to scenario 2, but includes more conservative projections for use tax and building permits. The total year-end revenue projection is $6.9 million, or $125,000 below anticipated expenditures. Staff included 2 recommendations in the City Council packet. The first recommendation was to approve the concrete and chip seal contracts and the permanent sculpture at City Hall. The second recommendation was to approve the contract for the concrete and the permanent sculpture for City Hall, but delay review of the chip seal contract until later this summer. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have at this time.
Questions? Al? Councilor Blum?
First, I'd like to thank Jessica because Jessica and I met on this last week, and I think you've answered a lot of the questions that I raised in your presentation tonight. A couple of questions I had related to, probably go more to Jay.
Okay.
And I don't know if we can,
That's next.
Jay, why don't you address both the chip seal and the other contract and the necessity of doing it now and the pros and cons of going ahead now versus waiting till next year. So if you could address those. Well,
It's the next item if you want to wait. Al?
Okay, we can wait on it.
Yeah, let's wait, and Jay, and then you can, I was going to take up item 8B and C together because
Okay.
they're going to have the
That's
same
fine.
issue.
Now I have no further questions. I think Jessica did a very good job of outlining that.
Councilor Gallagher? Councilor Sheldon?
He's usually right here. Okay, thanks for the presentation on that. 2 questions. Did I hear you at the beginning of your presentation, your very first slide, did you say something about the master plan either being included or not included? I must have missed it if I heard something.
The master plan is included. We just, because of the pandemic, it's been delayed. The process has been delayed, so we don't anticipate paying out the full amount of the contract. We'll be carrying that into 2021.
Right. So we're not going to have 12 months of ongoing reoccurring consultant fees for that project this year. We will maybe have the same 12-month block, but it's going to start in May, June, July, and
Correct.
go through middle of next year.
Correct.
My second question is regarding community development. Chris, is Chris here? Okay, well, you guys probably all know this as well. Does your projection in here, well, you probably know the answer to this, does your projection in here include all anticipated
Yes.
permit fees that may be coming in from stuff that is in the process right now?
With the exception of one. The country club permit is up in the air right now, so that has not been included in this revenue projection. So
if that project were to move forward, the 1% shortfall in scenario 2, staff's best guess would actually be a positive.
Correct.
No further questions, thanks.
Councilor Brown?
I don't necessarily have any questions, just an observation that we often lament our almost complete reliance on property tax, and, you know, every cloud has a silver lining, I guess, so.
Councilor Gallagher?
No questions.
Councilor Wheel?
Thanks. Thanks, Mayor. Just a quick question of clarification. I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but the chip seal and the concrete work is included in whole in the estimate, the most likely estimate that scenario you have?
The chip seal and the concrete are located in the capital fund, not the general fund. So the projections that I gave you were for the general fund and not the capital fund.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Councilor Safavi?
Jessica, let me ask you this. So I like the way you projected, you know, the best case scenario, worst case scenario. Does the worst case scenario also take into account if there's a second round of pandemic and delays and all that? Or I guess we can't even account for that. I guess, what are your thoughts around that?
It doesn't take into consideration a second wave. We considered that, and we noted we really we had a little loss of revenue, but not a ton, not like some of the other jurisdictions. So it's staff's belief that we can overcome maybe another second wave if there happens to be one for the same period of time. So we feel comfortable with moving forward with the projects.
Is it fair to say really that in that case, we might end up with some, not a surplus, but it would be basically, again, pushing the consultant fee and some of the things that we're doing, pushing it back. It's just moving it back. It's the money that's going to go into 2021 that will be needed, correct?
Correct. At that point, I believe it would just be mandatory expenses that we have to, utilities, salary expenses, those types of things. But the extraordinary expenses like the master plan or the 75th anniversary committee event, those types of things can be pushed to possibly 2021 if council approves.
Okay, no more questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will just add a comment to Councilor Brown that in speaking with the mayors, other municipalities are looking at 15, 20, or 25%, and they've taken big cuts. So it's in another way of saying it. We bemoan not having any commercial. Now it's happy we don't have any commercial because we don't have that loss of income. So they're looking at this year and next year taking big hits and figuring out how they're going to manage it. So this is very good news. Thank you, Jessica.
You're welcome.
No, our salaries remain intact.
We have to pay to serve on council.
All right, next agenda item 8B and C we'll take together. Jay, if you'd like to present.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. It's good to be back in front of you and not in front of your screens. As you know, both of these contracts for concrete and chip seal were tabled at the April 7th meeting. As we've heard, most of our financial scenarios, projections look pretty good, and staff is requesting that we approve these tonight. The one thing that you will see that is different on the contracts from when we saw them on April 7th is the city attorney worked with staff, and we do have some wording in section 8.3 as we don't know if COVID's going to be considered an unforeseen or foreseen issue anymore, so we made sure to cover that. If again there is a work stoppage for COVID, it's covered whether the courts see it as unforeseen or foreseen. So we've seen those changes in lots of contracts, and so that's the only change you will see in those contracts, some minor things that cover a possible second outbreak of COVID. So with that, then I can answer Councilor Blum's questions first. As you know, we don't like to put off maintenance of any of our facilities, especially streets, when we don't have to. We have a very aggressive maintenance program. We would really like to move forward with that and keep on schedule. If we do push that off a year, we are in better shape than most cities or counties as for the shape of our roads. We could handle that, but we would prefer to stay on track if we can. and keep that moving forward. If we would rather move forward with the 2020, and if we have some issues financially, maybe cut back in the 2021, but keep this one on and moving. This project does include Quincy, Holly, and Colorado, which are our mains. And we'd really like to do some preventative maintenance on those to keep those in as good a shape as we can.
Let me say this, that I think after discussions with Jessica, and I see no reason not to go ahead with both these projects. My one question, and it's kind of an inside joke with Jay, is are we going to be held up by Excel?
Well, hopefully not.
Now, I think that's, well, and I would be definitely in favor of moving forward with both of these projects.
Well, no, wait, we got a comment first. Councilor Sheldon, would you like, any questions for Jay?
No, no questions at this time, thanks.
Councilor Brown? Councilor Gallagher? Councilor Wheel?
No questions.
Councilor Savavi?
No questions.
Looks like you hit a home run there. Okay. All right, then, what's the pleasure of council to entertain a motion? For 8B and C together, we can take them both on a voice vote.
Do we have the motion for both of them?
Yeah, it's in there. You have it?
I don't see it.
Can we take them together?
Well,
They're
Yeah.
written out.
that okay?
It'd probably be best
Okay.
just to read them individually and then vote individually on them.
Yeah, let's,
All right,
it says
so
written out individually, okay.
I'll make two motions then. First, I move to approve the contract for chip seal services with Vance Brothers, Inc. in the amount of $530,268 and 2 cents plus $10,000 owner contingency for a total maximum expenditure of $540,268 and 2 cents. Authorize the expenditure of these funds and authorize the mayor to sign the contract for services.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor, voice vote.
Aye.
I make another motion. I move to approve the contract for the city's annual concrete project with Sunland Asphalt and Construction, Inc. in the amount of $69,095.96 with an owner contingency of $5,000 for a total maximum expenditure of $74,095.96. Authorize the expenditure of these funds and authorize the mayor to sign the contract for services.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There you go. Both passed. A and B, 8B and C passed. Next agenda item is 8D, and Jessica, your turn.
There we go. Before you tonight is the Cherry Hills Village Art Commission's recommendation for a permanent sculpture in front of City Hall. In May 2019, council earmarked $45,000 from the COP fund for a permanent sculpture. Since then, the Art Commission has held several public input meetings, reviewed various types of art from over 40 artists, interviewed 3 artists, and finally received a formal proposal from Gilberto Romero. At their meeting in January, the Art Commission unanimously moved to recommend City Council approve the purchase of Gusto by Gilberto Romero. The total purchase price of Gusto is $60,000 and will require approximately $1,700 for installation. $45,000 of the purchase price will be paid from the COP fund, and the remaining $15,000, along with the cost of installation, will be paid from the Art Commission's art donation account. The art donation account is a reserved account for the purchase of art and was created when the Commission was raising funds for the Deborah Butterfield sculpture. The account currently has a balance of $43,000. You heard briefly from the Commission's new co-chair, Dave Schmidt, so he and I are here and happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Very good. Questions for Jessica?
No questions.
No questions. I just want to thank you, Dave, and your committee for putting this together and bringing this piece to bear. I think it's a great addition to City Hall. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't really have any questions either, but just want to reiterate that I really, the Art Commission is a really challenging job because I don't think there's anything in life that's more subjective than art. And so it's really difficult You just know from the onset that you're not going to certainly please everyone. But I really appreciate the very thoughtful and deliberative process that the Art Commission took, the public input that was gathered, and, you know, whether it would have been my personal choice or not, I do think that this will look beautiful in front of our city hall. I think art is a very important part of a community, and so I just applaud the effort that you put into it. And I respect the challenge that the commission took on, and thank you for doing that. So,
Councilor Gallagher.
Thank you for going through the process with the committee. It's been a long process, and I think it's a good result.
Councilor Wheel.
Yeah, I'd agree. Good process, good outcome. Thank you.
Councilor Safavi.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. I was just going to say, that's a great Photoshop. That's a, wow. You didn't put it there and take a picture,
I
did
did
you?
not do it, no. It wasn't my doing.
That's excellent. No, great job to the commission and happy to support their recommendation after they've spent so much time and thought into this process. So that's terrific. All right. Do we need a...
I move to approve the art purchase agreement for the purchase of the piece Gusto from Gilberto Romero for the permanent installation at City Hall with a total purchase price of $60,000, including $15,000 from the art donation account and other costs up to $1,680 for engineering, delivery, installation, plaque, and lighting to be paid from the art donation account.
Second.
A motion, a second, voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Thank you. Next is agenda item 9A, which is new business, appointing a new city manager, improving city manager employment agreement. Our city attorney, Ms. Guckenberg. Bye, Dave. That's fine. I don't think it's on. There you go. That works.
Thank you. I'm before you tonight to present an agreement for Mr. Kramer to serve as city manager for the village. Mr. Thorson has served with great distinction the city for several years. Not done yet, but he will be completing his service on July 31st of this year. And the city council went through a process to seek applications and to vet the applicants very carefully and required by the charter to appoint a city manager. And in addition, it's a pretty standard practice to enter into this appointment agreement that is before you tonight. I work closely with staff and with the mayor and mayor pro tem to arrive at the terms of this agreement. And Mr. Kramer has signed off on it. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from council? Councilor Sheldon?
We're ready for a motion?
No?
Questions?
Nope.
Okay.
And I will say that the contract that contains the last discussion that we had regarding the terms in executive session, and that, so that's all, it's all here, and it's, as we agreed, so. All right, we...
Yeah, so I'll make the motion, but before I do, I just wanted to reiterate that it was a process. We did vet, we had wonderful candidates to choose from, and it really is a delight and a privilege that we found one amongst our existing staff. So in that vein, I move to appoint Christopher Kramer as the city manager and to approve a city manager employment agreement with Christopher Kramer effective on August 1st. I'm going to say 2020 because it's written here, but can I make it like 2025? Which is 2020.
Second. Second.
We have a motion and a second. It's a voice vote, too. All in favor?
Aye.
Chris, congratulations. We look forward to you. And we can't wait to look forward to working with you for a long time as a president city manager. Big shoes to fill over here, but I'm sure you're up to it. And I would like to just comment too that we had extraordinary candidates, and it was really heartening. But Chris clearly came out on top, and we can't wait to get started. So thank you so much.
And Mayor, I'd like to just say a few words as well, and I know Chris's family is here, and welcome, and it's a big momentous occasion for the family, so thank you for coming. And I think Chris may actually have a few words if that's all right as well. But I just want to say, that Chris was obviously the top candidate, and I looked at the extensive list of well-qualified group of applicants, and it's a credit to his talents and his technical skills, his communication skills, that he was able to secure this position. And I have great faith in Chris and that he's going to do a fantastic job. And there's no doubt he can fill the shoes, and I'm going to wish him the best. And in the short 7 weeks I've got left, I will try to teach him everything I know and probably some things I don't know. But with that, I don't know, Chris, do you want to say a few words?
If that's all right. Yes, please, speech. This is terrific.
Giving me the opportunity just to say a few words. I'll make this quick. I could not be more excited. This is an opportunity and a challenge that I feel particularly good about, simply because I think the challenges and the opportunities that are in front of the city are challenges I think that I can really aid with and assist with. So I'm very excited for that. I do want to thank my family, my wife Minu and my son Carson. They have been, yes, let's give them a round. Look at that, already saving equipment. All right, come on, look at that. They have been supportive of my career thus far. Many a long Board of Adjustment, Planning Commission, City Council nights. I want to thank them for their continued support of my career, because there will continue to be long Planning and Zoning, City Council, Board of Adjustment nights. I am excited for this because not often does a city manager get the opportunity to build on the momentum in a positive way that we have with my predecessor, Jim. He has really set the table. Nobody needs to reinvent the wheel here. We just need to build upon the success that Jim has got us started on. I'm excited because I've been here long enough to interact with enough residents to understand how special this place is. It really is a community. There's a sense of pride and a uniqueness to this community that I find very exciting. And I'm also excited because I've been here long enough to work with City Council. And I've seen the level of commitment, the smarts. You guys are an incredibly intelligent bunch, and it's stimulating and exciting to work with that. And I've also been here, I'm excited to work here because I've been here long enough to work, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it, most of all with the staff. This is a high quality staff, and it makes me excited at the idea of coming in here and working with them, hopefully for a long time to come. Those three legs of the stool is not something, though, that I just want to come and sit on. My hope is to invert that stool. My hope is to support that stool and all three legs of those, the residents, City Council, and staff. So I'm going to view my job as to see what I can do to help support all of those legs to continue to move forward based on a lot of the success we have with Jim. So again, I'm very excited. Thank you, and I look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you very much, Chris. Welcome aboard. All right, unless there's something else, like we could move to the reports. I have a brief report. One, just to address the Quincy Farm issues, people in here. I mean, if we wish to take up the idea of having a caretaker on that, the conservation easement does specifically say that a caretaker is allowed, and it gives us that option to do that. I would say the process with that, we couldn't really act on it until the next meeting. But the process, if we wanted to do that, if council wanted to do that, would bring forward a simple resolution, I think, simply to allow the city manager to go ahead and interview and publish and advertise for a position, and then determine how to proceed. If I think that would be something that could raise it for discussion among the council about whether they wish to proceed. So I don't think we can do, obviously all leases have to be signed by us, and the lease really doesn't, the lease didn't really expire until August 1st. They've terminated early as of July 1st. So, this is sooner than we thought it would be, but still I think, certainly the concerns that are raised, we could certainly discuss them. I think probably citizens would be happy if we did talk about that issue. So Jim, I don't know if you have did you want to say something?
No, there's two options with that. One is we can put an agenda item and have council debate whether they'd like to have a caretaker or not. Or two, the other option is to continue to let the commission do their work and follow up with whatever they're looking to do on that piece of property. So
Yeah.
it's at the council's pleasure.
It's the commission they don't have the authority to hire anybody, recently, so it's really up to us if we want a
No.
caretaker.
But
in
they
there,
have the
separate
authority to recommend that we hire someone.
They can.
And
They can.
Lucinda did speak, and I didn't get the impression that, I guess I would like to hear from the Quincy Farm Committee, and let them have some time they've obviously heard that feedback, and Lucinda said that they would be processing that, and I guess I wouldn't feel comfortable taking action one way or another without having at least their,
Asking them first.
Yeah,
I think
their
that's-
input,
And I
you
think, to be fair, I talked to Lucinda, and they have not taken a position as they haven't talked about it as a committee. And part of it was a reticence because they said, well, we can't hire anybody. When I said, that's okay, I think we can still get recommendations, and that, if we're interested in what your thoughts are. So I think that can be done.
as Lucinda pointed out, we haven't seen the draft of the master plan. I don't know what it calls for, what it doesn't call for. If it calls for actively programming the east side, then perhaps having a caretaker there, I just don't even know. And so I feel like I don't have the information needed to act on that. Obviously, I know that there's a group of very concerned citizens who feel strongly about it, but I don't know what else is in the works, and
Sure. Well, and it's not tied to the master plan, as they explained. It's not necessarily tied to the master plan. It's really an independent issue, because the master plan won't be done for several months, so.
But I guess
the
I
question
kind
is,
of
in the
feel like it
meantime-
is, for me, it's tied to the master plan, because if they were to say, I don't know, if they were to, the east side is the side that we're able to do stuff on. If they were to say, we're going to start doing something, that could have impact as to whether we have somebody living in that house or
Sure.
not,
I think
and so.
long-term, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't feel like I feel like I wouldn't want to move forward without
Well, Mayor,
input from Quincy Farm.
do we have a real security issue there from what I've heard tonight, that if we left that untended, are we taking a risk there? And is that something we should address right away, even on an interim basis? Because we don't know, and I had a number of calls too, and I don't know what the consensus is on what they want to recommend, but from listening to what the reports were tonight, it sounds like there's a real security issue if we don't do something.
I think it's certainly an issue for the residents who are surrounding it. They have security concerns. I don't know how, it's up here from the city manager. How about,
We will be doing a security audit with our police department. It's scheduled this Friday. Go through, have them walk through the entire property, give us ideas about, do we need cameras? We're gonna put together a patrol schedule, so it's gonna be part of their regular patrol to go through there. So we will get their input as to security, but, we haven't had any issues as far as I know, calls to the farm for.
There have been no criminal calls for service to Quincy Farms in 2020. I had a feeling with the discussion, that's what was going to come up, so I texted Sergeant Wood, who looked that up for me just now.
One of the reasons, though, is there has been a caretaker all of 2020, and without a caretaker now, are we taking a bigger risk?
Jerry's on the west side, but we don't have anybody on the east side, and, those are,
I think there's an argument that with no one on the east side, that we do address security and at a minimum start spending some money on things like security systems, put cameras in, because those are things that are long-term. And let's get them in now.
Yeah.
And put the appropriate signage in there, so people cannot drive into that property. If people want to be malicious after hours, security systems and cameras will certainly have an impact on that poor behavior.
Yeah, I think it's very valuable, and I think that's probably called for. I think, but we have time, and we won't have a meeting in July, 1st July, so we have time to think about it, and council members can think about it, and we can certainly put it on the agenda for a July meeting about how to.
Well, what I could recommend is that, first of all, besides doing the security walk, we could look at potential gates on the property, as well as, it seems like we should install cameras, even if we're going to have a caretaker there at some point in time, we could get that done. And then we've got a kind of I'll say a triple layer of insulation, in the sense that we'll have cameras, we'll have gates, we'll have patrol going by. And then we could put it onto a Quincy Farm Commission agenda as to whether they would like to see a caretaker on the property, and they could provide a recommendation or no recommendation to the council, if that sounds like a way to go.
Well, I think, Jim, rather than have them, give them the option of being silent, I think we should refer it to them and ask for their perspective. I can arrange the pieces in my head. Well, we've got maintenance issues, we've got security issues, we've got a vacancy, but I don't have, that may be arranged in my head one way and somebody else's another, and so on. I'd like them to put it all together for us and show us what is the caretaker's responsibilities, do they think we need one, how would it be paid for, so on. I also echo, I agree with Mike's comment about the investments in the hardware, and your comments about the investments in the hardware we should do promptly. That can go fast. The people part of it's going to be a longer term commitment, has to fit with the thinking about the master plan, Quincy Park's master plan. And so I'd like to get a clear picture of just what we're talking about.
Well, I think we're saying the same thing, so thank you, Councilmember Will.
Yeah, I think that I can talk to the chairman and we can do that. I think it got kind of sidetracked on who we're going to hire. That's not the issue, is who. Because we can't do that. We can't decide that. That's true, but we can get a recommendation on the concept and how that might work. So I'll talk to the chairman and have them put them on their agenda, and we can get a recommendation. I think that's appropriate.
Quick comment. So, right now, we're talking about, I think, a Band-Aid until we're all in agreement that we're going to wait for a committee to come back and make their recommendation. The committee obviously going to talk to the residents. They've already talked to them. They got their input. They're probably going to talk to them more. And eventually they're going to come with a proposal. This is what what they're going to be recommending. Full-time caretaker or not, whatever the recommendation. So the question is around this Band-Aid. Until then, there's a Band-Aid needed. And I thought when I listened to residents, there were two things. One was the safety. The second one was something around the irrigation and some immediate needs, so we don't, some things may not be reversible, right? So I think what I heard is that for security, we are going to do more patrol, or we're going to do something extra. Am I understanding this then?
So we'll be having a walk with PD on Friday to help, for them to help us determine what the best next steps are for security. So we'll defer to the police department to let us know what measures they think should be installed right away, what, down the line we could do to make sure that the property is safe. So that will be this Friday.
Okay, so how about the second point in terms of, again, there's part of it that it was watered by hand and irrigation was done by hand, and now it's not being done. So what is the scale that we're talking about here? Is this something that...
So the park staff currently maintains everything on the west side, so we will be prepared July 1st to start maintaining things on the east side. And Jeff Roberts, our parks operations supervisor, has worked with Candy over the years in the past to understand what the needs are over there.
Yep.
We've also met with Lisa Carlson, who has her horse on the farm right now, to further understand what the short-term needs are. So I'm confident that Jeff has a handle on maintenance on that side, and our crews will be able to take care of it.
Okay, so then my last question is, who is going to, call these residents or somehow let the people that came here and, voice their opinion today to let them know this is what we're doing. So in other words, there's a Band-Aid that is being put in place while, a more solid solution being put in place. So is there, I guess, are they just going to listen or read the notes from the council meeting, or is somebody going to let them know that's the plan? So, they know that it's being taken care of.
If council prefers, I can certainly reach out to the residents that came today and let them know that those are the steps
Yeah, we do need to communicate with them and keep the communications open, and let's do that. I can help maybe, but we have their names. I think we know who most of them are, and we can reach out. I'll reach out to Lucinda to start the conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I agree that we need to keep those lines of communication open, certainly, but I do not want to cut out the Quincy Farm Committee. And I thought, the way I interpreted Lucinda's comments were, we've heard you, those same concerns were voiced at the Quincy Farm meeting. We've heard you, and we're going to take that into account. And I don't want council to supersede Quincy Farms, so I would personally, communication is always good, so I'm not going to discourage anyone from communicating. But I really feel pretty strongly that we need to let Quincy Farm Committee do their job and, make recommendations, and then we can certainly consider those recommendations in the context of the feedback that we've heard, and their feedback as well.
Great.
So let me just ask this. Again, I want to make sure, I'm not sure if Councilor Brown, that was directed toward me, or the comment I made or not, but I want to make sure, not in any way, form, or shape, am I saying we bypass the Quincy Farm Committee. All I'm saying is that during this Band-Aid period, make sure we let the people who came here raise their voice and, they spoke up to know that we have listened and we're going to put a Band-Aid. But not in any way, form, or shape, we're going to go, or I'm recommending to bypass the committee. So that's all.
All right, let me get back on track here on the reports, unless you had something to add.
I'll just say this, that I know, no disrespect, it'll be more than a Band-Aid. It'll be a solid plan. And anything we're going to do is going to resolve the irrigation. It's going to resolve the security. And in the interim, and then at the long-term plan is whether there's a caretaker out there, and certainly we would not bypass. It makes sense to take that to the Quincy Farm Commission. So.
Yeah, and in fairness to the staff too, I mean, we don't have access to the property now. It's still under lease. So to the extent that there were comments about how it looks, yeah, well, that's because we don't have access. So, in fairness to what's going on. So I think we have it under control, and keep staff's capable hands to do that. Let's get back on the reports now in a more organized manner. I can give you a brief update. I wrote a piece for the next crier on the new Enforcement Integrity Act that was passed by the General Assembly, and I ran it by the chief and the city manager as well. And it does, and maybe Chief, you can obviously talk briefly to it too, but it does require body cams to be instituted on all peace officers by July of 2023. And actually, a backstory to that was it was going to be much sooner, but CML got in and said, you can't, this is a true unfunded mandate, and give us at least some time to figure out how we're going to pay for all of these, because it's not insubstantial, the amount of money that's going to be required, not only to have the cameras, but to do the continuing filing and updating on all of the videos. If you think every officer who goes out every day has to download their videos, and what FTE is going to be doing that. So it's a quite an amazing piece of legislation that passed so quickly and overhauled so much. It's such a big change. It's hard to even begin to talk about it. It's very interesting. The other big issue that's coming up, and it may affect Jessica, and I don't know if Jessica looked at this, but the Gallagher repeal. If Gallagher's not repealed, I don't know if your projections showed, but Gallagher, of course, requires a 55-45 split between commercial and residential. The effect of COVID is the incomes from the commercial is going way down in the state. So that means the assessments for residential has to go way down to keep that 55-45 ratio. So that's a big deal to cities and counties. It's a big deal to the General Assembly, interestingly, because they have to backfill education. So they're paying, K through 12 education by Amendment 23, and to the extent that that isn't paid from the local counties and property taxes, it has to come from the general fund, and they're $3 billion short in the general fund next year. It's even worse in the future. So this is why both Republicans and Democrats are signed on to this to get the issue of a repeal of Gallagher on the November ballot. So more on that to come. It's interesting times. I had lunch with the mayors on Wednesday. The Mayor of Greener Village hosted. we talked a lot about body cams and tax receipts and what people are doing, and I tried not to gloat too much. I was quiet during the discussions of tax revenue and how they're being hit and what they're going to have to do. They have serious problems about furloughs and reduction of staff because of the way their finances are looking. So we're in good shape compared to that. We also talked about the Bellevue, that's being done. The Bellevue medians are being all done, and the mayor said work is going well. They're actually digging the pipes. The water is what's taking the time now. They're having to do the underground drilling for the water to put water to the entire project. And I think they're meeting at Holly, and working from either end and meeting at Holly, he said. But that should look really nice when they finally finish that. And then we talked about of course, the Glenmore Light, and that's going up. The last couple of weeks have had lots of COVID calls with Tri-County and Metro Mayor's Caucus. Denver Mayor's has a call, the governor's office. The Arapahoe County has requested relief from the governor for a lot of things to open up more from the public health order. And there's also, the governor said he mentioned one time he wanted to push down the options to county health departments to make more variances and not have them all go through the governor because they're backlogged. Everybody wants a variance, everyone wants relief, and there's such a backlog that they weren't acting, so it's been a problem. But hopefully the governor will push it down and let Tri-County Health decide whether a variance is warranted in a particular case. But Arapahoe County has just requested a variance for a large number of broad topics from the COVID restrictions. So we'll see how that goes. I'm watching that. They did on the Metro Mayor's Caucus call. A lot of, again, it's the body cams and all of the new legislation, plus discussion about the Denver School District elimination of safety resource officers. I think the consensus of every mayor that on the call was astonishment and saying that's a bad idea. So but it did come from the school board, so that's quite a move. But I think the consensus of the mayors was it's an excellent program to build relationships and understanding with the police department, and be a big loss if we lost those SROs. So we'll see. We had a call, I think several of us in the council call about accessory structures in R3 district, and I know that Chris is looking at that too. That apparently that may have been in the modernization project. We may have made a change that was inadvertent about eliminated in one district accessory structures. We'll take a look to see how that might have occurred and what it is. But that was not, I don't think, anybody's intent to change it. So we said, calm down, let us get back to you and understand what happened. We had on June 8th, we had OSTAB. I'm still on the OSTAB board, and we awarded grants, and some affect us. That we awarded a grant for Englewood Roman Park. So that'll be the phase 2. So it's going to be a very nice park when it's done, and quite a bit of money from Arapahoe County. Greenwood Village, we approved a grant for the Westlands pickleball courts. So there'll be pickleball courts in the Westlands Park. I think they're roller skate surfaces that are going to be changed into pickleball courts there. And then Littleton and Sheridan won grants for extending trails, so that are in the Slaughterhouse Gulch and River Run Trail. So those are all terrific. They're great trails on that side of town for bicycling and walking. We have a meeting of this Thursday of the Bellevue Interchange Executive Committee meeting again. So this is one for the mayors and the executives. The latest is that Denver has asked Greenwood Village and everybody to go back and start again, and say they are opposed to any interchanges that go onto Union. Denver is. They said that's not their vision for Union. They want it to have traffic, but it will have multimodal, and it wouldn't. And they think a direct interchange onto Union would be incompatible with their vision of multimodal and things. So after all that work, we'll see. It could be an interesting meeting on Thursday. It's by video, so they can't hit each other.
Jim's looking at Chris like right now, going, "It's all you, man."
Yeah, so that's gonna theoretically then pit the city of Denver against the city of Greenwood Village.
Oh, not theoretically.
Yeah.
It's already pit them against. There's already been change of words. But I think underlying all that, of course, is COVID, because at the time they started this, they thought there was going to be money. The state is just saying, oh my God, they're cutting everywhere. They're cutting education. They're cutting everywhere they can. So this is discretionary road building projects are going to be way down.
And frankly, multimodal is having challenges as well. Public transit, all not very popular during the COVID
When they have to make cuts to
pandemic.
education, they're not going to be fun. So, the urgency of this and the thought that there would be early money to do in phases is probably evaporating right now. Friday, there'll be commissioners and managers meeting on Zoom, but they always talk about COVID. The CML annual meeting in person was canceled, but the business meeting will be by Zoom on June 25th, and we'll be voting on that, and they'll be electing some new members to the board. And then the executive board meeting is the Friday, the next day, and I'll attend that as well. But I think that they're still trying to conduct a kind of a smaller seminar meeting this fall. At least they're talking about, CML's talking about it. We'll see. That's it. No meeting July 1st, of course, under our charter. We skipped that, so the next meeting will be the third week in July for everybody. Okay. Others, Councillor Blum.
I have just a couple of comments. I want to thank the chief because traffic is slowing down on Bellevue with all the citations being issued. So not only we appreciate it, but I saw also the city of Englewood likes that too. I would like to thank Jim officially. Can we call you a lame duck now? We're really going to miss you.
I think people are calling me that before I got here.
At least lame, maybe not the duck
Yeah,
part.
we've called him lame for 4 years.
Just not together, right.
And then I just have one question for Jay. How is our Excel coming along?
Well, right now it's not. We're still trying to figure out where our meter is for the light. So as soon as we can get that, CDOT will get it programmed and start flashing as soon as we can. I know Jim made some phone calls too because he was talking to Excel about some other issues. So we're hoping to get that pushed forward and hopefully see that meter sooner rather than later.
We'd like to thank you. It's been 18 years coming, so the final push here, hopefully we can get it done.
Yeah.
Okay. First, on Quincy Farm, I appreciate the comments that we got from the public today. It's not often that we get 11 people coming in either in person or via Zoom that speaks on one particular issue. So good or bad, I think that's nice that we've got that community input. I would say that it's rare that I sit here and feel totally out of the loop on an issue. And I felt totally out of the loop on this issue tonight. And I looked to staff as to why I was totally out of the loop on this issue. If it were something that people gathered and came in totally unbeknownst to staff, that people were going to come in and talk to us about some unbeknownst issue, I get it. But I know that at least a few people up here had received phone calls about this issue prior to tonight and it had been discussed. I was not one of them, and that's fine. But if staff knows that certain council members are getting communication from the public on a certain matter, one that will arise to an occasion of public input, especially in this time of COVID where people are masked up, having to come in and making efforts to get in online and speak to us, I think it's incumbent upon staff to let us know so that we're not sitting up here not knowing what's going on. Until I got through a number of people's testimony about what it is they were talking about, I didn't know what the issue was. Now I do, I think. And I know that the committee, the Quincy Farm Committee, has taken the public's comment and under consideration and is committing to work with them. But I don't like being out of the loop. And I don't know if anyone else up here shares that same feeling, but to me, it's not good when these people are sitting here looking at us as their elected officials, asking us, please don't do this to our surrounding community, to our property, to our neighbor's property, to the city-owned property. The citizens own this property. I don't like being the last to know about it. So I would ask that staff please make an effort to communicate if you know there's going to be something happening that we can be advised on and educated on. I'm not looking to have a leg up on the community members when they walk in the door. I just want to know what the topic is.
Well, Councilmember Sheldon, I'll take full responsibility for that. It's my job to inform the council of what's going on. And my mistake, I thought individuals had been calling all the council members because I got quite a few calls from the council members. So I apologize that I didn't know they hadn't contacted you, and I will make sure that you're well informed of these things.
Yeah, so maybe on
the tenure of my stay here.
Okay, on a go forward, the other instance that the mayor brought up just a moment ago about R3 zoning for guest houses and whatnot, I know some of us, I was one of them, got called about it, and some of us maybe didn't receive a call. I don't know if you didn't get a call. So this is another perfect example of a way to rectify exactly what happened here tonight on Quincy Farm, do it for our next communication, if and when it happens again, in that circumstance whereby members of the community or a member is calling about something, saying, hey, I'm going to come and speak at a council meeting and tell you guys why you did something wrong. How big or small the issue may be, I think we are owed that communication in advance for whatever it may be, just so Afshin does not feel like he didn't he doesn't know what the issue's about. I've spent maybe 2 hours on the issue already going into the meeting, and you don't know anything about it. So thank you, I appreciate that. That's all on that. Where are we with the county funds that we have access to? Are we using those funds? And I guess my bigger question is, I believe I've been reading about some of the other jurisdictions using those funds for assisting their small businesses. I'm curious as to what we're doing to assist our small businesses with some of those county funds, and whether or not we're making a proactive attempt to assist them and help them through this tough time with those monies. And I don't know if this is something you're prepared to talk on tonight, and if it's not, okay, thank you.
So, interesting thought. I know we only have, like 4 businesses right there. Are those the only businesses? And would we be talking, the person who offers piano lessons? And I know, we have pretty strict rules around what businesses can even be conducted out of your home, but I'm sure we have others.
Clubs. I think we're going to be open to ideas. Obviously, any of those funds, they're just not, here's money, go have fun. They have to show and receipts and for
demonstrate a need
for PPEs and whatever else they're doing, but it's not to reimburse them for lost funds or anything of that nature. It's going to be strictly monitored, and they're going to have to apply and show us what they're going to do, and then we have to in turn send that to the county. But I think it was best for us not to spin our wheels. Let's wait for the county to do theirs. There will be time to allow the businesses, whether they're home businesses, clubs, or for businesses. I think we'll be able to take a look at that and decide for themselves whether they want to apply.
And I know a lot of the federal programs have a strong differentiation with nonprofits. Do you think that's going to come into play?
We'll have to take a look at the county's plan and see if it includes nonprofits or not. I'm not sure. I haven't heard them being included in any of this process, but maybe they are.
And on Friday's call, the commissioners and managers meeting, it's on the agenda. This is an agenda item.
Okay.
So the reimbursements, they should be able to explain what's going on.
Okay, I got two more quick things. Chief, coming from a personal citizen of the village, not a city council member, and I'm not speaking on behalf of council, I wanted to tell you that I am very appreciative of the effort that your department puts forth every day, and I would not have any, I am fully in favor of keeping your police department intact. I just wanted to make that out there for the record. And my final comment on a happy note, our little neighborhood Charlevoix up at the top of Quincy, we couldn't do a neighborhood party this year where we have our ice cream trucks and our barbecues, and the fire department has kindly come out and sprayed down our kids, and we have egg tosses and all kinds of fun stuff for years and years. We couldn't do it this year with COVID and concerns about people getting sick, so we did a chalk walk this year. And my wife and I and my kids went out and delivered 90 boxes of chalk, 90 sleeves of plastic cups that said 2020 Charlevoix Chalk Walk, and we delivered it in a little basket to all of the homeowners within the Charlevoix community. The chalk walk was on Saturday, which meant that over the course of Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, children that lived in the homes or grandchildren of older families who lived in these homes were going out and doing their best artistic version of something and putting it on their driveway. And the goal was that by Saturday at 4:30, the whole community comes outside, obviously masked up, and we walk around with our adult beverages or children beverages, as it may be, in our chalk walk cups, and we walk from house to house admiring all the artwork on the streets. Really neat way to get the public together, get the community together. Well, as it turned out, everybody did all their artwork, and then at about 3:30, the skies opened up and blew out every single piece of art on all 90 homes.
So you just walked around with drinks?
The public was, our community was great. We persevered, and kids were out rocking and rolling, making art in the street right after the rain stopped. It wasn't what it was before, but it was really neat to see the community come together. So there are still ways for us to enjoy our neighbors, and we proved that up. That's all. Thanks.
Councilor Brown.
Nothing really to report, but just thank you to the chief and the police force. I have seen a lot of officers in our neck of the woods patrolling speeds and traffic, the speed trailer. Just this morning, I saw a motorcycle officer and luckily looked down at my speedometer and was going below the speed limit, thankfully, because that would be rather humiliating. So I just thank you. I know that's of a big concern to residents in our area, and I appreciate it. So thank you.
I want to say that I'm grateful for the dialogue and the feedback that we heard tonight from our community and the stakeholders, and quite honestly, I'm a little surprised at the disconnect between the draft agreement where it is today and the people out there who are commenting on it, because it doesn't seem that I would have thought they would have been closer, and so it's good that we're making these comments, and it's going to take some time, and we should not rush this. And we should make sure it's done very well.
Councilor Wheel.
Thanks. I'd echo Dan's comments about feeling a little out of the loop on the Quincy Farm business, but I would also say on the good news side of it, that's really been an exception. I think for the most part, there's been a great job done keeping us informed of issues as they develop and so on. So keep up the good work, and we'll find our way through the Quincy Farm situation. Dr. Cog meeting tomorrow night. I went through all the reading material. There's nothing that really bears on us. And neighborhood's happy. Good comments again on Bellevue Median, really coming along nicely. And I think folks are really excited, even though it's not complete yet. It's the anticipation's building. Thanks. That's all I have.
No report, but I do have a question. I know, again, there are going to be some probably maybe requirements that may come down eventually to all the police departments around, wearing body cameras or whatever else that may trickle down. Chief, do you have any idea, or is this something that maybe in a month or a couple of months you can, tell us how that would have, what they would be, as well as, the budget impact, the cost of those cameras, whatever it takes. Do you have any ideas? Do you want to talk about it now, or is it something we're at the preliminary stages and need more information before you can tell us about it?
I can cover a little bit of this. I thought I'd do that in my report. Would you like to review my report now?
Whatever is easier for you. It really doesn't matter. I was just thinking again, especially those body cameras, I think they're not cheap, right? So.
So I apologize I don't do well sitting and talking. And this is the first time I've been able to stand before you since the George Floyd incident in Minneapolis. So a couple of things that I wanted to say was that obviously, as a career police officer, about 37 years now, and remember I started when I was 12. I think I told you all that 8 years ago. There is no way, shape, or form that we would condone the behavior that happened. It was criminal, it was immoral, it was unethical, and quite frankly, it is an extreme detriment for all of us who take this job as a career and not a job. And I think that's very important for you to hear. And having said that, your police department is very professional. We've worked very hard in the last 8 years to bring us up to any kind of standard you would like to put us up against with regard to training, our policies, what we have in place. We haven't taught or used a chokehold for quite some time. What we're doing right now, though, is going through our policies and procedures to make sure that everything that's come up, there's 8 different things I think that a lot of people have looked at, is where are we currently with how we're teaching things, how we say things, how we do things. And I think that's all important. And then the last piece of that, of course, would be where do we write it down to make sure that you can hold every single one of us accountable. And I think that that's probably the bigger issue, no matter what you're dealing with or what type of issue you're dealing with. But I would suggest to you that that was probably the biggest problem that you had back in Minneapolis. So we will be training, doing all of those types of things. With regard to House Bill 217, I've already been in contact with Kathy. I've had conversations with city manager and city manager-to-be about what that will look like for us. And there's several different pieces to the pie of 217, as you very well know. The big piece, the big ticket piece will be body cameras. We currently have cameras in our cars. We have video. But obviously that would need to change because we need to go to the standard that the state is asking us to do. I had my tech give our company that we use a call already, and they were 976 quotes behind. So you can see where this is taking us. However, Paul did a great job, and I was able to get a quote. But I hesitate to give it to you right at this minute because we have not processed what that will look like for additional staff, should there be any, and then it is a quote that didn't include putting a camera on myself or Commander Weathers. And quite frankly, the way that the statute reads, if I'm going to go out and do a dignitary visit or something like that, I'm going to have a camera. I never thought that I would be wearing any kind of a camera or driving a car with a camera, but so I hesitate to do that, but we are on top of it. The other pieces that come in, we're already making arrangements to get training in about House Bill 217. That's due by September of this year. Now, we will have that completed, I assure you. Some of the other things that are in there have to deal with reporting. I don't know if you've all seen this, but some of the reporting standards with use of force, that is not a problem. We will always be able to report use of force here, and I'm happy to tell you that those types of things would be rare. However,
The reporting about making stops, whether they're traffic stops or whether they're contacts, is a complicated matter. I don't believe there's any system that the county currently has, whether it's Arapahoe County or any of our jurisdictions here, that can get all of the facets that are required into a report right now. Those are some dates that I'm still a little fuzzy on. We'll be working with Kathy to get those figured out, because that's going to take IT, a lot of IT, and it's going to be the same with the body cameras. It's going to take IT, and you have a chief that gets IT, but sometimes it doesn't work well with me. So we're going to have to make sure that component is in there. And one of the last ones I'd like to talk to you about is the idea of the qualified immunity. You have a nervous police department right now. I'm not going to mince words. I've had conversations in roll calls. I've had private conversations with people trying to explain that you have a community that supports you, and we've seen that. We had a mom from Charlevoix that brought us lunch one day. We've got another resident bringing breakfast. We've had there's a lot of food coming in and out of the PD right now, and that's how people like to show their support, and we're very grateful for that. But there is that piece of, when I do my job, when I do it well, when I do it within the law, when I do it within policy and procedure, when I do it in good faith, that I need to be backed up by that. And I think this community is willing to do that, but there's probably some pieces working with Catherine and staff that we're going to have to work through with regard to insurance to make sure that we have those in place. And I would think that for my staff, that's probably, cops worry, everybody worries, but when you have that going on, that's the piece of the pie that, we would want to get solved. So I hope this helps. I am happy to answer any question. We've taken a few questions from some very interesting folks, and I don't mind that. I never do. In fact, sometimes I think that's the best part of being a chief, is I'm asked to think on my feet, and I think that we do a good job because you have a great police department. So if there's any other questions with regard to any of that I can try to take on right now, but I promise we're on it.
No, just a quick comment, Chief. Speaking not as a councilman, but as a citizen here, with or without body camera on you guys, I've never felt safer, and I've never been treated better than in this city than any other place. So make sure your staff knows that. Again, I know you're telling them, but make sure they know that the council supports them. This is the most professional group of people I've ever come across. So again, hoya, and kudos to you guys, and keep up the good job. That's all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Yes, please convey our support and thoughts to your officers and your whole staff. Thank you. Anyone else? Any other council members or city manager?
Yes. First of all, I just want to let council know that we have 3 requests into CDOT. 2 of them are for some additional signing on University, do not block intersections. And then we have a request in for a minor median change over off of Bellevue near the farms. And we are still waiting to hear back from them to get approval on those. We don't know if they're going to be approved, but if they do, we'll begin the process to get that work complete. Which one? We're still exploring that, but it's definitely at the very minimum a shared cost. CDOT will not pay for it, but between maybe the city and the HOA. So, and we haven't discussed that as a council, or you haven't discussed that yet, whether to fund that or not. Second, in response to Councilmember Sheldon, I just want to say this. We knew there would be one individual here on Zoom tonight, which I did alert council that was happening. I was not aware that there would be 11 members here today. The issue, certainly I try to get everybody up to date on my Friday updates and get everybody in sync on what happened during the last week so that everybody's on the same page. Sometimes that just doesn't work out as well as we hope, but certainly that's an effort we always try to achieve. So I, again, apologize for that, and certainly we'll try to keep everybody informed, and I'm sure your new city manager will also do that as well. So, and that's all I have. Other than, I would like to thank the chief and her staff. It really is amazing what they do, and it's a tough time for our police department. It's going to be tough to recruit police officers. All these things are happening, and it's unfortunate. We know we have a fantastic police department. We don't have the complaints a lot of these cities do, and so with that, I give all my credit to the chief and the training and her officers, so thank you. That's it.
Okay, any other comments from directors? Anybody wish to make any more? If not, our city attorney? All right, then if the good of the order, good of the
Move to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Second. Thank you all for coming, and see you same time in July. July 21st, I think, is that right? Yeah.